everybody. This is Misty Hale, and welcome to the Arkansas Post. Today is Monday, November 17th, and we're talking about what's going on in the state. So, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders attempted to hold off special elections for 2 legislative seats until after the fiscal session is over. That's now at an end, at least for the moment. The governor made a proclamation setting the special elections for March the 3rd. Now, this comes after there have been 2 separate court rulings that ordered her and the Secretary of State to move the elections from June the 9th to March the 3rd. Now, this earlier election date will ensure that the districts have representation in both the House and the Senate chambers during the fiscal session coming up April of 2026. So the districts involved are Senate District 26, which was left vacant by the sudden death of Senator Gary Stubblefield. This district covers part of Sebastian, Logan, Franklin, and Johnson County. It's in the River Valley, kind of along the I-40 corridor, and it includes areas that would have been impacted by the proposed prison in Franklin County. And of course, many of you may recall, Senator Stubblefield was a vocal opponent of the prison, and he sadly passed away on September the 2nd. Now, the second district involved in this is House District 70, which that was left vacant on September 30th when Representative Carlton Wing stepped down to lead Arkansas PBS, which of course is state funded. Therefore, he could not serve and be a beneficiary of that. And that district is in the North Little Rock area. Now, in her proclamation, Governor Sanders says that she's setting the date so that she'll be in compliance with the court ruling, but that she feels confident that she's going to win on appeal. So Arkansas law basically says that a special election must be held no more than 150 days after the vacancy is created, unless the governor determines that it's impractical or unduly burdensome to hold it in that time period. And just to do the math on that, 150 days after Senator Stubblefield's death would be January 30th, 2026. And 150 days after Representative Wing's resignation would be February 27th of 2026. Now, the governor says that state law gives her the authority to set the date at her discretion, but clearly the court disagreed. Attorney General Tim Griffin has vowed to appeal the court rulings, so we will see what happens with that. Moving on to education news, Arkansas just rolled out a fresh set of proposed updates to the Education Freedom Account program. So if your family uses EFAs or if you're thinking about it, now is the time to pay attention to this. So what are EFAs? Basically, EFAs allow parents to use state funding for private school tuition, homeschool curriculum, tutoring, and other approved learning expenses. The state is reviewing those rules that shape how parents can use the state education dollars. And for the next month, they want to hear feedback from people on these proposed rules. Now, the new draft rules tighten up a lot of definitions so that families have a clearer picture of what counts as an approved expense. Things like extracurricular activities, qualifying purchases, and what the state considers to be misuse of funds are all spelled out in more detail in these proposed definitions. And the idea is really to remove some of the gray areas that have caused confusion as the program has grown and gotten much more popular. There are also a few practical changes in these rules. The proposed application window would run from February 1st through June 1st of each year, giving families a predictable timeline of when to apply. And the vendor that runs the payment platform would see its fee capped at 2%, which means that more money would stay with the students and not with that vendor. And the rules also add a formal audit and appeals process so families know exactly what to expect if questions come up about how they're spending that money. One part of these rules that's getting a lot of chatter is how EFAs can or can't be used for team sports. Now, the draft says that EFA funds wouldn't cover things like equipment, travel, or registration fees for sports teams. Several lawmakers and board members have already said that they want to take a closer look at that section, especially to make sure that homeschool and private school kids aren't being boxed out of opportunities, but that money is still being spent responsibly. So here's where you come in. The public comment period is open until December 16th, and it's really easy to weigh in. You can send your thoughts to, and I'll put these links in the notes, but it's ade.rulescomments@ade.arkansas.gov. Or you can show up to one of the comment hearings on December 2nd at 10 a.m. or 5 p.m. So if EFAs matter to your family, if you use them or you want to use them, this is your chance to help shape the final rules before they get locked in. So moving over to some sad news in the River Valley, Arkansas has seen several unsettling cases this week, with law enforcement in multiple counties investigating deaths and a serious hit and run. So here's what we know so far. In Yell County, a fisherman discovered a body floating in Lake Oladale near the town of Ola. Local police and the county dive team recovered the body Sunday afternoon, and the state crime lab is now working to identify the individual and determine the cause of death. And in Van Buren, police are investigating another body that was found along the banks of the Arkansas River near Lee Creek Road. Details on both of these are still limited, and authorities have not released the person's identity or any indication of how they died. And then in Pope County, state police are searching for the driver involved in a fatal hit and run. An 82-year-old Russellville was struck along Highway 326, that's kind of in the Happy Valley, Gumlug area, and he later died from his injuries. Troopers are asking anyone with information about a damaged vehicle or suspicious activity in the area to come forward as the investigation continues. In politics news, Arkansas's 2026 filing period wrapped up last week, and the primary season is shaping up to be pretty competitive. Of course, primaries in Arkansas, I think, are in general more interesting than the general election. So at the statewide level, thinking about our constitutional offices, most of the action is happening inside of the Republican Party. The Secretary of State race features a three-way GOP primary between State Senator Kim Hammer, Miller County Judge Kathy Hardin Harrison, and Army veteran Brian Norris. And Republicans also have a two-way primary for Land Commissioner between Christian Olson and Cole Jester. Now, in the federal races on the U.S. Senate side, Senator Tom Cotton has primary challenges from Jeb Little and Micah Ashby. And in the 2nd Congressional District, Congressman French Hill has a Republican challenger in Chase McDowell. The Democrats have far fewer statewide races this cycle, but there are still a couple of notable primaries. The Democratic nomination for governor is a matchup between State Senator Fred Love and businesswoman Sufa Ziprasith Mays. And Democrats also have a three-way U.S. Senate primary with Hallie Schaffner, Ethan Dunbar, and Dan Whitfield all trying to get the opportunity to run against Senator Tom Cotton. The legislative races are where the bulk of the primary energy sits, especially on the Republican side. In the Arkansas House, Republicans have 16 contested primaries, including large multi-candidate fields. One of the biggest is House District 5, where you've got Mike Bishop, John Burnside, Kyle Evatt, Stan Berry, and Johnny McCowan all in that ballot. There are other competitive GOP primaries in races, including incumbents like Stetson Painter, Jason Nazarenko, and Matt Duffield, who have all drawn challengers. And over in Yell/Logan County, there's the District 52 race, which has several people in that, and that will be competitive as well. Democrats have 5 House primaries, mostly in Central Arkansas, and that features names like Carrie Huddleston, Joyce Ann Gray, Angela Person West, and Elijah Zane Thompson. The Arkansas State Senate also features some high-profile primaries. Republicans have 5 contested Senate races, including District 21, where Representative Jeremy Wooldridge will face incumbent Senator Blake Johnson. And other GOP primaries include races featuring Misha Martin versus Representative Brandon Aker for a Senate seat. That's District 13. And Senator Brian King versus Bobby Ballinger in District 28. And of course, that one is interesting because Senator King defeated Bobby Ballinger's father, Senator Bob Ballinger. Now, Democrats have 2 Senate primaries, including a contested race in District 13 with Jason Williams and Allison Grigsby Sweatman. So while the statewide ballot may look a little light in December, the primaries are packed. And it's important to remember that the Republican primary is going to be structured differently this year. the party has voted to semi-close their primary election. So if you want to vote in a Republican primary election, you cannot be registered as a Democrat. Okay. So basically, up to this point in the state of Arkansas, you could go in a primary election and request either a Democratic or a Republican ballot if you wanted to. It really wouldn't matter how you were registered. Democrats could request Republican ballots. Republicans could request Democratic ballots. And people who are not affiliated or registered with either party could also request either one. Well, that's changed this year. So if you want a Republican ballot, you have to be either registered a Republican or not registered with either party. And that's actually most Arkansans. I think only 20% of Arkansans are registered as Democrats. There are no changes to the Democratic Party primary process. The only thing that changes is who can request a Republican primary ballot in March. Again, limited only to registered Republicans and Arkansans who are unaffiliated, i.e. not registered as anything in the state of Arkansas, which again, most Arkansans are going to fall into one of those two buckets. All right, that's it for your Arkansas news update for this Monday. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day and God bless.